Welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. We made great progress on the assembly of the Daggerboards this week.
And we also got to building our jig further and making some modifications to it that we discovered had to be made. But we got that thing all built, and we're going to show you what we did and where we got to on the Daggerboards. And then we'll go over what we're planning and a little bit about our change in schedule based on some things. So let's head over to the garage and show you what we did. Today we're working on the spines, and as you can see, we've finished up putting the 8 layers of fiberglass strips and bonded them to the foam and to the western red cedar portion of it here. And then we've also rounded off all 4 edges here and sanded all sides of this to rough it up so that it's ready to put our wraps on here. And we're going to be wrapping this today with 2 layers of basalt because we again want to strengthen this Daggerboard up a little bit, and this spine is a heavy portion of the strength of this thing, and so we're going to wrap this thing in basalt right now. So we got to cut our basalt here, and we want to go full-length pieces. One of the issues with going back and forth from the lot is tools. We don't always bring everything here that we need, so we didn't bring our long straight edge, but fortunately this is the one we planed flat, so it's a perfect straight edge, so we'll use this. Perfect. We'll get all 4 out of this one sheet here. Another thing I like about working with the basalt is the cloth is so much nicer. The weave on this, it's very nice, doesn't have all kinds of poles and stuff in it. So very, very nice to work with. We're mixing up our circumnavigation epoxy because we're doing such large sections here, and we are out in some sunlight right now. The rains have stopped about a day early, so the weather report wasn't quite right, but since we're out in the sun, we're using the circumnavigation. It'll give us a lot more time to work this. And these are the 2 layers we're going to be wrapping that spine in. So we don't quite know how this is going to go, so we'll see. I'm a little worried about how thick and unbendable the basalt is and making it stick around that edges of those spines. It'll be interesting. One down, 1 to go. Of course, this time we know what we're doing a little bit better, so it's going to go a lot faster than the first one. On the first one, cross whatever you got. On the first one, we found a little difficulty, so we actually pulled the cloth back off and put it on again. And because we're working with the circumnavigation in fairly cool temperatures, that's no problem. This won't set up for another 2 hours, so it gives us a lot of time to make mistakes and fix them, which we did on the first one. The first one's now nice. It's all clamped and put away, and now we'll do the second one. This will go a lot smoother. Again, with the crossed fingers. All right, here we go.
Brian and I are headed out to Riverside to go to West Marine because I had to pick up another 55-gallon barrel of epoxy and hardener for our West system because we love the West system epoxy, and so we've used up 55 gallons of it already. The majority of that was used up making the strip liking on the hull because that's a lot of epoxy between all of those strips. Now from here on out, we'll use West system for joining all the furniture together and things like that. And so our usage will go down quite a bit. So another 55 gallons will probably do us. So we'll go ahead and head out there and pick it up. And since they're one of our sponsors, we love their products and happy to use them and happy to get our discount on our epoxy. So it's been a good deal for us. Now today, while I'm doing this, Brian's at the lot. No, the Brian, sorry. Yeah, you're the Brian. Meet Brian Chassis. He's at our garage working on the Daggerboards. So I'm playing hooky with Brian DeRuiter and heading out to Riverside. That's about 45-minute drive. We've been here before, getting our first barrel, but back again to get another 55 gallons.
And there's our epoxy, and there's our
so
hardener.
let me get this moved out for you.
There.
We hope this is our last 55-gallon drum of epoxy. We've already gone through the 55 gallons, so we're hoping this will do the rest of the boat. Not just from a cost standpoint, but mostly from a weight standpoint. This stuff is heavy, and fortunately they have a little forklift here to help us out so we can get into the truck. Which color? Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you, and you too.
They're coming together, and now that we've got the basalt on the spine, we're getting ready to start bonding the leading and trailing edges to the spine. And so that's what we're going to do today, but today we're going to just get the leading edge done, get that clamped and straightened up and correct and let that set up, and then we'll tomorrow, actually Friday, we'll glue on the trailing edge. So we've got our spine clamped right here, and we've got a straight edge clamp to it to make sure that this stays straight. It was about maybe a couple millimeters off, so we clamped this so that while this sets up, it'll help it maintain that. And we've got it leveled along here, so this is level. And here's the leading edge of the board that's going to go on. And we've marked where the sheave goes on right here. And so this comes onto the end of this sheave box here. We'll put this on later. But for right now, we're going to put this on top of here, and then we're going to clamp it on and let this set up, and we'll move it after it's all done, and then we'll work on the second one right here as well. But this spine is stiff enough that we can move this around once it's all clamped together. Time to put some thickened epoxy on top so we can get our leading edge onto our spine. Today we're going to bond the trailing edge onto here. We got the leading edge here already. But we have to scuff this up first so that the bond will take place, because there's some slick dried epoxy on here, so we don't want that. All right, I got a wipe down there. We're gonna wipe this one down too. We've got these up on a couple of legs on each end to raise this up because we're going to need to clamp across here, so we need to be able to get to the bottom of this. So once this thing gets a bunch of clamps on it, it's holding it, it'll be fine, and we can actually take it off the table and set it down. But for while we're doing this, kind of need it raised like this. So this is the second one. Get it down, we'll get it level with this whole thing. This one is currently already level. So we can check the one we put on to make sure it's still level as well. And the other one's already done behind me on the floor, so just one to go here. And then tomorrow we can do a little finish work. We've got to attach the sheave on the end and a couple other little pieces on the ends that we need to put on. And then these things are ready to rumble. So tomorrow for sure we're going to start working on the jig that's going to sand these into the teardrop shape that we want. So we finally got these boards just about ready for that, and just a couple things in the morning. And one thing we haven't done yet too is we haven't drilled the hole through here for the rod that the sheave sits on, so we're going to do that in the morning as well. As you can see, we've got our Daggerboard now all glued together, and you know, still looks ugly and rough because we haven't started shaping it yet, but at least the shape is there to sand. But we haven't put the end piece in right here, this little piece. This spine is supposed to end short of this by a couple 100 millimeters, and so we have a block here that we need to put in right now. But there's a little excess epoxy in here, so I'm going to take a vibrator multi-tool here and clean this up a little bit so we can get that block to fit in here. You can see a little bit of extra epoxy sticking out there. There we go. That will be fine. And we're going to epoxy up both sides, the inside and the block here. Clamp it in and let that cure for a day or so. As soon as we're done with this, we pretty much, as far as we want to go on this today, we still haven't put the sheave on the end block, but we're going to wait on that because we decided we want to pre-drill this thing before we epoxy it on there. So we need a longer drill bit than we have, so we've ordered one. It'll be coming in a couple days, so we'll wait on that because we can get to work on the jig once this is done today. So here we are off to Home Depot, and thing is that we had most of the materials for our jig that we're building this afternoon. We're missing one thing. So how many people does it take to buy 3 or 2 hose clamps? Well, it takes Brian, myself, and the Admiral's hiding way back there. Oh, and some screws, but other than that. So off we go, and then we'll be back to work. All right, so we need a hose clamp. And what this is for is to attach our router to a board, and we need 2 of these. So what we're creating now is we've got the frame down here, and we're making the sled that's going to go along it. So it has to be very square. All right, we'll flip it over and drop it in.
See if it'll slide.
And there we have our slide. Next up on our Daggerboard hit list is we're going to put the sheaves on right here. And that'll be the ones that pull the boards down. So we're going to epoxy those on right now. And after that, all we have left is the very top board. We decided, we were going to do that earlier, but we decided it's so flimsy that we would wait and do that absolutely last before we're going to start carving these things. So once this is got epoxy on there and it's curing, we're going to go back to working on the jig for shaving these things. Now we did make a slight mistake yesterday, but we'll fix it. Just wood. So we have a little change to make to that. I'll show you that in a minute. But let's get these epoxied on first. This little conglomerate of clamps is to get these things straight in all directions here. But we're looking good. We'll let those set up. We used West System epoxy today because we want this to set up faster so that it holds this position with these clamps here. So we made a slight discovery on our car here. Unfortunately, it's not too late to fix this. So the problem is that the board itself is going to be higher than this railing by about 2 inches. And this will not clear it right now. So this needs to come up about that 2-inch distance. So we just have to figure out how we're going to fix that. What we discovered was that we have to raise the board higher. And so we had to rebuild the whole, not all of it, but add to the car to get it up higher like this, because we need enough space to raise the board up. And the reason for that is we have to round off the ends of the board. And so this, you can see the how we're going to adjust this router here. We just clamp it onto the board, and that allows us, because there's all kinds of different curves we have to match and heights we have to match changing. So we can take this router and put it at any angle we need and just reclamp it on here and get a different angle like this. Sorry about the camera. But in order to get this low angle on here, we're going to have to pitch the router way down. So in order to get this router way down here, we had to raise the whole Daggerboard up higher. and that allows us to get to this curved ends on here. And so that meant we had to create this bridge higher up and redo all this. This is just a brace on here, but this is the thing we clamp the router to in all the different positions around here, all the way down and all the way around the other end over there. And then once we have the router going and the board in there, Brian and I just slide this down and it'll cut that strip off. And we just have to keep repositioning it and running it down and running it down. Now we're going to grease the top of this and the side of this with like Teflon so that this slides nicely. But other than that, it's pretty much ready to go now. What's next up is we're going to cut the template that we're going to be mounting right here. That's the shape of the Daggerboard in the end. And that way we can bring this over, set that router down right onto the edge of it and get that particular one, and then just run it down over the foam and cut it. Come back here, set it to another position on the form, go down again. This was a pain in the butt to build, but it's the one way I could figure out how to get this curvature right on the whole thing. And not only get it right, but duplicate it so that the two boards are identical. But that's really important in case we break one board on one side and want to use it on the other side of the board. It has to fit in the other Daggerboard casing. So the two boards have to be identical and the two casing holes have to be identical. And so this is going to help us get and actually we're going to probably cut a third board with this. So get the three boards cut identical so that they'll all work in the same size housing for the cradles of the Daggerboards in the hull. There we go. We've avoided putting the final piece on because it's flimsy in a sense. And so this final piece goes on the top right here. And we're going to put that on now on both of these. We're going to use West System so it sets up rather rapidly. And this should be ready tomorrow to put the first Daggerboard into our jig here and start cutting our foam back, and of course the wood where the sheaves are located. So we're almost ready for that, and by the end of today we will be. So Brian's mixing up some epoxy right now. We're going to get these on here, clamp them down, get them to set up for tonight, and then tomorrow we'll try something new and see how this jig actually performs for us. I'm hoping that it works out. And it's sort of untested, and we'll see once we give it a try. We do that with a lot of things. Almost everything we do building this boat is the first time we've done it. So, and this whole jig idea was not in the plans. This is just what we came up with to shave it rather than trying to do it by hand, which terrifies me that we could get these things anywhere near straight on here. So hopefully the jig will do that for us. So today we'll get these epoxied up, and we've already been off to the lot getting some things set up there. Next week we're going to put on the copper coat. So we're ready for that, and we're starting to get some weeks of sunny weather here, so it's going to be no rain for the next week. That's plenty of time to do our copper coat, and so in about a week from now we'll get that on. And we've got a whole team of people coming out for that. So we learned from our first one, where Brian and I worked our butts off all day, that we need more people. And so we do have more people coming. And we have a new worker. His name's Nick. And Nick is a local guy here who's interested in learning to build boats and learning to sail boats. And so he's going for the golden ticket that we offer. If you go to our website and look up Join a Crew, you can read about that. And he's going to avail himself of our agreement to, if he comes and work on the boat, he gets to come sailing on the boat. So he's going to come and put in quite a few hours over the next year and a half. So he's going to be a big help for us into getting back on schedule, because right now we're behind, and the only way we can make it up is to add more people, because Brian and I are already working full time, so we can't really do more. But we can add more people, and then we'll catch back up because we just have more man hours being spent each week. So it's not only Nick, we're going to try and get some more friends and family to be putting in more time as well. So let's get to it. We're going to start putting these last pieces on, because that last piece I'm going to show you here, this is the actual cross-section to scale of the Daggerboard. It's very small and thin. And this top piece is just this little skinny piece on the end here. And so it just doesn't have much, which is why this is so thin here. And it's really just this top piece above my fingers right there. So this is the profile. Well, the other thing we're going to do today, I should mention, is we're going to take this piece of to scale printout, and we're going to cut out our plywood into the shape, at least the top edge of the shape, and the bottom will be square. And we'll do 2 of those, and those go on the 2 ends of this to allow us to get this form to work properly. So that's why we printed this, so that we could cut those plywood pieces out for the forms later today. Since this is so thin, we're just putting a bead down the center. We don't want to get epoxy over the whole board. It'll be a waste of epoxy. And wait. And there we have it. We don't even need to clamp this. It's we're going to, but the epoxy's holding it so well. As long as we don't run by and hit it with a sledgehammer, it's going to be fine. We got to squeeze that all the way. All right, so we used our template here, and the idea is we're cutting the top of this curve off, and then doing the same thing at the top of the board here, cutting a second one, following the curve again. Whoops, following the curve again. Sorry, camera's pointing out nowhere. And then we cut down here and leave the bottom flat on both of these. And that'll give us something to match up to on the top edges of the board. And we flip the board and do the other side on there. So that's how that's going to work. Now we just have to cut these out and we'll be good. Okay, now we're going to go off this end. There's our form we use to adjust our router to the right height as we go. Took it right down to the line, so, and they're identical. So now we're going to go ahead and attach these onto the forms. There's our form we use to adjust our router to the right height as we go, and that'll go right over here. We're getting ready to go ahead and carve the top edge of one of our Daggerboards, and to get prepared for that, we've already leveled the entire frame and made sure that it's level in all directions, you know, like there. So at that point, we took our laser level and put it in the middle and made sure that the forms are perfectly aligned with each other. And that's what really is critical. The next thing we did is we put our Daggerboard in here, and we have leveled it with some blocks underneath to bring it to the correct height it needs to be, which is, if we put our level across here, this should be just slightly below this, because we want this to be, the cut to be slightly above the spine here. So that's perfect. And it's the same on the other end. And then we just stuck this board across here and clamped it down just to keep this in place as we start pulling our jig car down here. And when we get to about here, we'll move this and over here to hold it, and then we'll continue on down to the other end.
At this point, you can see Phil and Brian applying some packaging tape along the rail edges. That was to make a nice surface so that we can apply some white lithium grease to make the car slide smoothly along the rails. However, if you notice in the background, up along the hills, there are clouds rolling in. We broke for lunch, and by the time we came back, rain was threatening, so we had to pack up the Daggerboards and jig and put them away in the garage. It rained for the next 2 days, so we'll have to show you the shaving of the Daggerboards in another video. But next week, we'll be on to applying the copper coat to the other hull, so the rest of the Daggerboard work will have to wait.
Well, that's what we got done this week on the Daggerboards. So we spent about 3 weeks so far working on them, and we may have a week or two more to go, although we won't be on to that next week. We have some other things to do. But those weeks that we spent on the Daggerboards have kind of changed our work schedule for Phase 3.
Yep. Between all the atmospheric rivers and various other rainy days that we had, giving much more rain than typical here in California, we had to change our schedule a bit.
Yeah, we chose to work on our Daggerboards rather than do what we planned to do in Phase 3, and that involved, at the latter part of it, that involved us getting our bulkheads inserted into the canoes and putting on the hull sides and deck sides. But because of those rains, we decided to do something different so that we didn't lose time. And because we did, we're really not behind any further than we were on our schedule. We just got other things done.
For Phase 3, we still have a month to go, which is 25% of our Phase 3 schedule. We still plan on getting those hulls flipped and the bulkheads started. In the next couple of months, we're going to get to work assembling the boat.
And to get us back on schedule, we're going to add some more manpower to the whole team. And that'll get us a lot more work done. But that's all in Phase 4 that's going to be coming up after that. And we'll get to that later.
So we'd love for you to join us next week as we get to work finishing the canoes and flip them over in 2 weeks.
Right, and we do that a week after putting the copper coat on, once it had a chance to harden up. Except our friend Brian DeRuiter, who owns that Bobcat that we use all the time, that guy's off on a cruise. How dare he?
But all kidding aside, he'll be back in 1 week, and then we'll get to flip those canoes. Don't worry, we have lots of work to do in the meantime. Thank you to all of our viewers for joining us for this week's video, and an extra special thank you to all of our patrons listed here for your continued support. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, it means a lot to us, and helps us keep our schedule going and building this boat. So again, thank you all so much. But we'll see you next week.
Yep.
And we're going to be working on putting the copper coat onto the second hull, and that means we're so close to flipping these and assembling the boat, I can almost taste it.
Yep. Always don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified of that next video.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.